Hi, and welcome to Mr. Bench's Book Reviews. What's in the box today? We've got... second. Not open. There we go. Ah, yes, wonderful. Today's work is The Vanishing Monster by Sheila McCullagh from the Puddle Lane series. It's one of these books that's with the picture of the lane at the start. That's nice. And it's illustrated by Mark Chadwick. Davy lived in Puddle Lane. He had a sister whose name was Sarah. Davy. This is one of those books that has like for the grown-ups up here, a bit longer, and for the child here, Davy. I'm just going to read both, so there may be some repetition. That's the way it goes. I guess that's Davy and that's Sarah staring at him out of the window. There was a big old house at the end of the lane. The house was empty and it had a big garden. Nobody minded if children went into the garden to play. The old house. There it is. And I like the way, I mean, this is almost like a map. People love books with maps. So there's the house at the end of the lane on your map so you can check what's going on. That's quite fun. One day, Davy pushed open the iron gate and went into the garden. The sun was shining and the sky was blue. It was very hot. Davy sat down under an old tree. Davy sat down. There he is. Davy had been sitting there for a long time when he heard a noise. He looked up and saw two long green ears. Davy saw two green ears. Now just so you can see what's going on here, his ears are actually detached from the bush. They appear to be floating. And the ears made a noise and that made him look up and he saw them. There it is. Davy. That's Davy for you. Davy sat very still. He kept very quiet. Soon he saw two green eyes. There they are. Can't really see how green they are there, but it could just be that ears look green. You just kind of assume the eyes are green. Most people have similarly coloured ears and eyes. I'm not sure what true that is. Anyway, Davy is imagining the eyes to be green. I mean, I guess that the skin around the eyes is the green thing, or the fur. Look at the front colour. Like normally when people say green eyes, they'll be referring to the iris of the eyes. But there you go. Let's keep going. Let's see what happens next. Davy sat very still, he kept very quiet. That's lovely repetition. Give a little bit of repetition. Soon he saw a long green tail. There it is, tail. So we've got ears, eyes, tail. Davy saw a long green tail. That's this thing for the person who's learning to read along. Davy was just a little bit frightened, but he kept very quiet and he sat very still. He's very good at doing that. The ears and the eyes and the tail all joined up together and a big green monster came out of the bushes. The green monster. There it is. So they've not just joined together, they've also been enhanced or extended with other bits of monster. It's a bit like a kind of lion-y dog. At that moment, Davy sneezed. He couldn't help himself. The sneeze burst out. A tissue. Quite like that, the way they make the sneeze the agent. It's quite nice. But the what do you call it? The subject of the sentence. In a moment, the monster had vanished. Davy didn't see him go. He just wasn't there anymore. Davy stared. The monster had gone. The monster had gone. Now here, if you were only reading these bits, you would be a bit puzzled because you see a sneezing child and it says the monster had gone. You wouldn't know what was like cause and effect there if you didn't have the longer text. But it's okay, they do expect you to have someone reading the whole thing. I mean, a lot of it you could have just got from the pictures, but that one you would definitely need a bit of the explanation. You could say here, and he's been very quick to get that tissue out if his sneeze has come on so suddenly. And maybe he has a tissue at the ready at all moments. Or do you have a tissue in the earlier picture? Well, you can't see where his hand is. No, I don't think he does. So let's well, yeah, he's gone and then eventually couldn't help himself. Davy waited. Doesn't really say what for. He didn't really feel sorry, can't read. He didn't feel frightened anymore, that's in brackets. Before long he saw 2 green ears. Davy saw 2 green ears. Wow, he's grinning and like anything now. Oh, Davy, he's loving it. That's a nice change of perspective here from the illustrator. We've been much focused on Davy before, but now we're like almost... Well, we're not looking from the monster's point of view because most people can't see the backs of their own ears unless their anatomy is rather peculiar. But it's more from behind the monster than how we've had it before. Then he saw 2 green eyes, and then he saw a long green tail. So it's a consistent order of appearance for these body parts. Davy saw 2 green eyes and a green tail. Yep. The ears and the eyes and the tail all joined up together. Well, we've seen that happen before. The monster was back. He looked very nervous. The monster was back. Here's nervous monster. Please don't be afraid, monster, said Davy. I won't hurt you. The monster jumped. For a moment, Davy thought that he would vanish again, but he didn't. He spoke in a whiffly, griffly voice. I'm not quite sure what a whiffly, griffly voice is supposed to be, which is particularly difficult if you're reading this, because the next bit is in, like if you're reading it out loud, because the next bit is direct speech. So I'm just going to read it and we'll see how whiffly, griffly it is. And I won't hurt you, said the monster. That probably wasn't very whiffly or griffly. And I won't hurt you. I don't know. Would have to look those up. There's Davy and the monster. Anyway. Whiffly. There. I mean, a whiff is like a smell. Oh, I don't know, a smelly voice. Who are you? Maybe, who are you? I guess. Who are you? Asked Davy. I'm a griffle, said the monster in his whiffly, griffly voice. What's a griffle? Asked Davy. A griffle? Well, I guess griffly just means it's the adjective from griffle. So, anyway, what's a griffle? Asked Davy. I mean, you could say someone who talks like this. That's why my voice is griffly. But he doesn't. Anyway, he explains it in a different way. He says, a griffle is a vanishing monster, said the griffle, which backs up what we saw happen earlier. Griffles are always being frightened by people, so they always vanish when they see anyone. But I don't think I'm frightened of you. I guess it means any more, because we already saw him vanish when he saw someone. And the suggestion is that he did that because he was frightened, but he must have changed his mind. There's the griffle. Please don't be frightened of me, said Davy. And he just said he wasn't, so it seems like a slightly unnecessary thing to ask of him. Stay here in the garden and play with me. So the griffle stayed, the very obedient griffle, and played with Davy. Did both things he was asked to do, Davy and the griffle. Not sure what they're playing. Here we go. They played at hide and seek. The griffle was very good at hiding. All he had to do was to vanish. But he always left his ears showing so that Davy could see him. Slightly contradictory. When you don't want to hide behind something, rather than just sitting there with your ears hanging out. Anyway, Davy saw the green ears. Yep, there they are above the bush. At last it was time for Davy to go home. Please come with me, he said to the griffle. I'd like you to come and stay. You sure you're not frightened? Said the griffle. We heard earlier that Davy wasn't frightened, I believe. didn't he? He wasn't frightened anymore to begin with, he was a little, but after this emboldening sneeze, he's become brave. I'm not a bit frightened, said Davy. So Davy and the Griffle went out of the garden together. They went back to Davy's house. Davy and the Griffle went back to Davy's house. On the map at the start, we don't have any pointers as to which house is Davy's, but I expect he lives somewhere in that lane, so it's probably not far for him and the Griffle to walk. As they got to the door of Davy's house, Davy's sister Sarah ran out. We met her earlier. Hello, Davy, she cried. Where have you been? Or, where have you been? So, it's probably just where have you been? Fairly neutral. Shh, said Davy. You'll frighten the Griffle. Sarah ran out. What's a Griffle? Asked Sarah. He's a monster, said Davy. When the Griffle was asked to introduce himself, he said it was a vanishing monster, but Davy is leaving out that important piece of information. Or maybe he gets to it later. He's a monster, said Davy, but he's very easily frightened. See, the Griffle thinks, number one thing about me, can vanish. Davy thinks, most interesting thing about the Griffle is that he's a scaredy cat. Seems a bit unfair, particularly considering that the Griffle was spending the whole afternoon not being frightened of Davy. Anyway, and when Davy looked, the Griffle had vanished. He's gone, Davy said sadly. The Griffle was a friend of mine, and he's gone. Oh, that's sad. The monster had gone, though. Astute observers, looking at the book, will see that there's a long green tail there. So Davy, he's been good at spotting the ears, but the tail, when solitary, is able to evade Davy's glance, or what do you call it? Aye. There's nothing there, said Sarah, so she's not spotted either. You must be making it up. I'm not, said Davy. He was here. He played with me in the garden. I wish he hadn't gone. Perhaps he'll come back, said Sarah. It sounds like she's humouring him slightly there. The monster had gone. But this is a bit weird, though. It says the monster had gone. So our narrator has not spotted the ears up there either. So narrator and illustrator haven't been talking to one another. And that's the end. There are some notes for the parent-teacher, but I'm not going to read them. And it's a bit ripped, unfortunately. But it is an old book. So there you go. Fascinating at the end there with I mean, I would imagine that the narrator and the illustrator, I mean, my interpretation of it is that it's not just poorly illustrated. That the illustrator hasn't just been creative and thought, I'll just put the ears in so the monster hasn't really gone. I would imagine that's been discussed with McCullagh, and that the intention is that the monster appears to have gone to the children who have suddenly lost their skills of observation, and that they put that in on purpose. But you don't know, I mean, you do get inconsistent drawings. Could be that the narrator has gone, the illustrator has gone somewhat rogue and completely changed the ending with those two ears. But I don't think so. I think Davy is he does alright, doesn't he? I don't really like the way he forgets to mention there's a vanishing monster. Maybe he forgets, and that's why he doesn't think that the monster may have vanished. Maybe it's a bit dim. Anyway, that was the vanishing monster. There are others in the series that may come up on future episodes of Mr. Bench's book reviews. If you'd like another Puddle Lane book, then do let me know in the comments. And otherwise, I shall see you next time. Bye.